If you like learning about the obscure history of the NFL on Jaguar Gator 9, then you're really going to like what's taking place on the all-new channel Jaguar Gator 8, where we talk all things college football. An announcement video drops on Wednesday, with the first official published video coming 2 weeks from now on Monday, February 21st. Go subscribe there, and be sure to tune in Wednesday to learn more. And now, on with our feature presentation. Sometimes, when putting together a Super Bowl ad campaign, things happen that are completely out of your control that you absolutely cannot prepare for or predict. It was impossible for Tostitos to predict when making their bungee jumping ad at Super Bowl 31 that a bungee jumper would be at the Super Bowl halftime show, and that said bungee jumper would die during the final dress rehearsal, forcing Tostitos to pull the ad. It was impossible for Jeep to predict when making their commercial for Super Bowl 55 starring Bruce Springsteen that it would be reported just hours after the game that Springsteen was arrested for driving under the influence, forcing Jeep to pull the ad almost immediately after the game, although the charges would later be dismissed. And this is another one of those situations that was completely unexpected, that a company could not have prepared for, and that caused some controversy after the game among those who knew about what happened, although for the average person, the controversy may have been completely unnoticed. In 1993, at Super Bowl XXVII, Pepsi was going all out with a brand new advertising campaign to try and improve their brand recognition and recall, and to gain an edge in the cola wars. And in the end, what was supposed to be a funny and hilarious advertisement turned into maybe the saddest advertisement in the history of the Super Bowl. And this is the story behind the ad. Before I talk about the ad in question and why it was so controversial and tragic, we need some context to understand what Pepsi was doing, what their intentions were, and how the advertisement was supposed to be received. Entering 1993, Pepsi was in a bit of a pickle. In the battle of the cola wars between themselves and Coca-Cola for superiority in the soft drink market, Coca-Cola seemed to be winning pretty handily. At the very least, Coca-Cola was expanding their lead at the top spot. Everything about 1992 was disastrous for Pepsi, and this isn't even taking into account the worst advertising campaign of all time, where they ran a promotion in the Philippines where 5 people literally wound up dying. Not only did they finish second to Coke, but their market share dropped from 18.4% to 18%. And not only did Diet Pepsi stay behind Diet Coke, but their market share dipped as well, going from 6.3% to 6.1%. On top of that, not only did soft drink sales grow at their slowest rate since the mid-70s, but whereas Coca-Cola's share of the overall market stayed the same, Pepsi's share of the overall market slipped from 32.8% to 32.4%. This is just a long way of saying that Pepsi was in some trouble, especially after 2 straight years of Coca-Cola widening their market share over Pepsi. And naturally, when you don't have a winning formula, you look to change things up. You go all out on an advertising campaign to change whatever perceptions people have about the company, and to get that extra advantage. And that's exactly what Pepsi was looking to do at Super Bowl XXVII. Now, they had advertised at the Super Bowl before, usually to mixed results at best. They sponsored the Diet Pepsi Talent Challenge at Super Bowl XXIII, which was universally panned, was considered to be the worst pregame segment in the history of the Super Bowl, and was a reminder to everyone as to why Reggie White was a football player and not a stand-up comedian. To learn more about that, click the card in the upper right corner. And then, they tried to run a $20 million ad campaign at Super Bowl XXV, only to cancel it just days before the game and throw that money down the drain because they didn't realize that having a bunch of people call the same number and potentially jam the phone lines was a bad idea during a time of war. To learn more about that, click the card in the upper right corner. But Pepsi was still feeling confident in their ability to advertise at the big game, and they saw a golden opportunity at Super Bowl XXVII, especially since Coca-Cola was not advertising. They were saving their money, and were taking a chance by letting Pepsi get their name out there some more. There were 56 ads that were airing at Super Bowl XXVII. Pepsi bought a grand total of 8 of them. That was, by a comfortable margin, the most advertising space bought by a company at the game. For some comparison, in second place was Gillette, and they were airing 4 ads. Pepsi was doubling the output of second place, and not even taking production costs into account, and just considering the money used to buy the airspace, Pepsi was spending somewhere in the ballpark of $7 million, or $850,000 per 30 seconds. And little did they know that one of the ads that they were going to air would be the subject of a tragic controversy. Pepsi had a bit of an interesting advertising strategy for the Super Bowl, as their ads were all over the place. They had some ads for Crystal Pepsi, because they were really pushing that hard around this time, even though it never really took off. Crystal Pepsi had one of the most iconic ads of that Super Bowl, with Van Halen's Right Now being played over some computer-generated images. This might be the most 90s-looking advertisement ever. They had an advertisement about living your life to the fullest, highlighting the amount of time people will spend on Earth doing activities such as eating, going to the bathroom, and sleeping. In my favorite ad of the bunch, they had one where a kid was asked what he wanted to do, and the kid takes it to mean what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. so he starts listing off activities like kissing up to middle management and moving into a retirement home. These ads were clearly appealing more toward the younger generation, and were a sharp change in direction from the Ray Charles ads. But for the purposes of our story, the ad that we're going to focus on is this one right here. It's a 30-second spot with an incredibly simple premise starring an old man sitting and sipping on a Coke at a boring, dull wedding, before getting some excitement in his life and learning how to have fun. And a ton of people were tuned into the ad. Super Bowl XXVII had an average television audience of over 90 million viewers, which was the second most in Super Bowl history, and a peak television audience of over 133 million viewers, which was the most. And when the ad came on the screen, this is what the whole country was watching.
Some people we get at 16. Others, we have to wait a little longer.
It's a cute ad, and having an old man wearing a shirt that says "Eat, Surf, Die" at the very end, completely out of his element, is kinda funny. No one seemed to have any problem with the ad, and while this ad isn't exactly remembered a whole lot today, and wasn't one of the winners, heck, it's not even up on YouTube, it wasn't hated, and people seem to take no issue with this 30-second spot. It was a perfectly serviceable, cute little ad at the game. However, when you consider the backstory behind this ad, it's absolutely tragic. Because even though it wasn't trying to be, this might have been the saddest advertisement in the history of the Super Bowl. Herman Finberg was born on August 31st, 1899. Throughout his life, Finberg was a salesman. While he would usually sell trinkets around Los Angeles, he would sell other things as well. As one of his family members said, he spent almost his entire life as a salesman. He sold scrap, he sold food, he sold soap and bleach, he sold advertising. However, Finberg was relatively unknown unless you personally knew him. He was not a celebrity or anything like that. He was just a regular old salesman who had a job to do, and by all accounts, was pretty good at his job, seeing as he did it for practically his whole life. But sometimes, life works in a funny way. Sometimes you get your big break when you're young and just starting out. Sometimes you get your big break before you even realize it. And sometimes, you get it when you're 93 years old. Finberg had no acting experience whatsoever. He is not listed in a single IMDb credit, and has never appeared in a commercial or a TV show or a movie before. Yet in October of 1992, he was offered what seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. Finberg was going to star in this Pepsi commercial. And this wasn't just a cameo. He was the star. The guy drinking the Coke at the wedding? That was him. The guy wearing the shirt at the very end that said "Eat, Surf, Die"? That was him. This advertisement revolved around Finberg, and Finberg could not be more thrilled to have been a part of it. Now, Finberg's starring role in the ad was completely by accident. Finberg was brought in as an extra at first. With a BBDO advertising director not liking what he was seeing so far, he had Finberg drink a Coke, just because it's a cheap shot. And who knows, you might need that shot down the road. Well, from there, Pepsi decided to create an entirely new ad centered around this 93-year-old man. The chairman and CEO of the advertising agency, Phil Dusenberry, said that this was a terrific accident. And when I said that Finberg could not have been more thrilled to be a part of the ad, I truly mean it. He seemed like the absolute sweetest man and the kindest soul. He would call his daughter every day and tell her how the commercial was going, how he got picked up in a limousine, how he had a makeup crew powder his bald head, and this seemed like the absolute highlight of his life. To emphasize just how excited he was, a few weeks after the ad, he went to the hospital with a blood clot in his leg. The doctors recommended that they amputate the leg. His response was an emphatic no. Not because he was scared of the process, or just didn't want to live the last years of his life with no legs, but because he got a nice pair of shoes while doing the Pepsi spot. And he told the doctors on those shoes, "I intend to wear them." He was so excited to see the advertisement air, and was so excited to see his daughter and his family see him on TV living the Hollywood life and being a celebrity in front of over 100 million people. Unfortunately, that day never came. Super Bowl XXVII was held on January 31st, 1993. On January 21st, 10 days before the Super Bowl, and 10 days before the advertiser that was going to change Finberg's life was set to air, Finberg died at the age of 93. It was never revealed exactly what he died of, and whether it was natural causes, or whether it was related to the blood clot from a few weeks before. But whatever the case, Finberg would never get to see himself on TV. And when 100 million people watched the game, watched the ad, and saw Finberg wearing a shirt that said "Eat, Surf, Die," they likely laughed, not knowing any better. and not knowing that the man wearing that shirt literally died in between the shooting of this ad and the airing of it. And not even Pepsi knew about this. Spokesman Andrew Giangola said that Pepsi and the advertising agency had no idea that Finberg died until a few days after the advertisement even aired. Heck, on January 25th, 5 days after he died, Adweek ran an article about this advertising campaign and about Finberg, talking about him in the present tense, not once mentioning his death. Again, Finberg was not a well-known person or celebrity. He was just your average person. It was only a few days after Pepsi aired the ad that they were informed that the star of the ad passed away and never got to see it. At this point, Pepsi was in a major dilemma. On one hand, you could pull the ad. However, you spent $500,000 on this one advertisement alone, plus the $850,000 it took to buy the airspace for this ad. This was a 7-figure investment, and it's not like the general public had any idea that the man in the promo was dead. So who knows how many people would have even batted an eye. Throwing away all that money and hard work, especially after what happened 2 years ago at Super Bowl XXV, where you had to let an 8-figure investment from the Super Bowl fall by the wayside without giving it time, was not ideal. On the other hand, this was a dead person that we were talking about. It could come off as awfully insensitive, especially considering the shirt that he was wearing, and the fact that the man who was wearing a shirt about dying was now literally dead. So Pepsi did the logical and natural thing. They asked what Finberg's family would have wanted. And their response? Under no circumstances are you going to pull this advertisement. After some deliberation, Pepsi decided that they were going to keep the ad running for 2 reasons. Number one, and perhaps most importantly, Finberg's family did not want the ad getting pulled. This ad was so important to Finberg, and truly was the highlight of his life, that the family viewed this ad not as insensitive in the wake of his death, but rather as a tribute and a celebration to his 93 wonderful years on Earth. In the eulogy, it read that during the last few months, he sold Pepsi Cola with the younger generation. When you combine the fact that Finberg literally died because he appreciated his time with the ad that much and refused to get amputated, and the fact that Pepsi was mentioned in the closing of his eulogy, that tells you everything you need to know about how much this experience meant to him. And his family wanted the ad to stay on for that reason. Even though his daughter, Cecilia Bertis-Gels, cried when she saw the ad for the first time, she didn't want to get it pulled, saying that the ad almost made her father seem alive again. She then added, "I know he would have been devastated if the ad was pulled." Number 2, Finberg was not a celebrity. As spokesman Andrew Giangola said, it was a tough call, saying when you are dealing with life and death situations, there are no cookie-cutter answers. But the fact that Finberg wasn't a celebrity made the decision easier. If Pepsi pulled the ad, then not only would the company be upsetting the family, and not only would the company have to answer questions about why they pulled it and possibly make the family relive his death, but Pepsi would be throwing 7 figures down the drain. Under those circumstances, it made no sense for them to pull the ad. So the ad continues to run as scheduled after the Super Bowl, and Finberg continued to make people laugh and smile. This was supposed to be a lighthearted advertisement featuring an older gentleman having fun at the beach and being the unlikely centerpiece. Instead, for reasons that were obviously completely out of Pepsi's control, it became maybe the saddest and most tragic advertisement in the over half-century-long history of the Super Bowl. And it's an absolute shame that Finberg never got to see himself on the big screen, never got to personally experience his 15 minutes of fame, and never got to see his daughter's reaction to the spot. However, 3 decades later, his legacy lives on. And when your legacy is bringing joy to over 100 million people who remember sitting in front of their television sets, well, that's not exactly the worst way in the world to go out. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 PM Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes, link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. If you want to see college football videos, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.